Nothing ever comes to me, yeah, in a steady stream. But you gotta keep on going. You gotta live that dream. I know I ain't supposed to feel it, but oh how it feels. Instead of letting it go, I let it stay.
Hey, what's up, fellow anglers? Aaron LeSieur here, providing you a quick fishing report for Clear Lake, California. Hey, I just got back from a 4-day guys trip where the weather was awesome, but the fishing was mediocre at best. Well, let's get right to it. Let's talk about the conditions. We've had some unstable weather leading up to this past week, but finally got 4 days in a row of warm weather, and that started to bring those fish up to the shallows. You know it's Clear Lake and the wind's going to blow. You just don't know when it's going to blow. Luckily, we had about 3 days where the wind wasn't bad, a couple mornings where the wind was nice and flat, and just a ripple on the afternoon. There was only 1 day out of the 4 where the south end got pretty rough and 2-foot rollers out there. And the water levels, they're way up. Clear Lake is full. And you can see this down there on the north end, all the big shallow flats, the tules. You can go back 50 yards in those things. They are all flooded right now. And the water clarity, it seemed to be the same from north to south. It was about 4 to 5 feet of visibility. The temperature of the water was one big difference. The south end was a lot colder versus the north. We were getting some mid to low 50s in the morning on the south end. North was up there at 67 degrees was the most that I saw it in that afternoon. And of course, you got the Clear Lake gnats. The summer's here coming up, and they are out in abundance already. So be prepared to have them buzzing around your face and sticking to your boat when you run through them on from one lake to the other. So what are the bass doing? Well, they are moving up to the shallows. They are in spawn, full spawn mode right now. I tried initially to go kind of do a little deep water fishing, see if any of those big pre-spawners were out there on the rock piles down south, and I got nada. Big goose egg. Went up shallow and started flipping some Senkos and some Texas rig baits. We were using some lizards also. Catching a bunch of the small males. You could catch, 1.5, 2 pounders all day long, and you would eventually run into a big one, but you'd have to go hours and hours until you actually ran into one. I did try some reaction style baits. I did see the fish. They were chasing shad and silver sides. There's a ton of bait up shallow right now. There's the crappie, bluegill, and all the other small bait fish. You could see the bass crashing in up on the shore or anywhere around the bait were flirting out of the water. And you could actually see the bass coming up through the bait balls and just gorging themselves on them. So I tried a little reaction bait. It was just a jerk bait. We threw some around some points, around docks. I only caught one. A couple of the other guys caught a couple here and there, but nothing huge. Just a couple. My biggest was like 2.5 pounds, 2 3/4. I guess if I threw it all day long, I probably could have maybe got a big bite here or there. But putting that much time into it, when I saw some of these big cruisers around, I thought the shallow water spawning bite was going to be the way to get a big girl. So yeah, lots of males up shallow right now. And a ton of fish up in the shallows up north. When I went there on Tuesday, I saw a ton of cruisers, males, big females, pairs on beds. That basically is where the spawn is in full effect. I did catch some big ones down south, 7.5 off a bed that I did not see on the first day we were there. And then I caught a 6 on Monday off a bed down there. But on Tuesday, I spent a lot of time up north, and there are a ton of fish beds up there in the tules around the docks. Stayed away from that area on the weekend because the California tournament trail rolled through there, and I figured there would be a bunch of guys up in those docks. Didn't want to mess with them up there at the tournament. And I figured the pressure was going to be pretty crazy up there too. So saw that the bite was pretty tough for those guys too. The Wild West was back here about a week or so ago. and that bite was incredibly tough. I'm surprised how low the weights were. So let's talk about what's going on, how to catch the fish now. Basically, beds. Get out there on your trolling motor, put it on high, cruise around the shallows until you find a couple big ones, a big female or a male on a bed. Right now, the north has got them all over the place. So if I was to go back out there again tomorrow, I just have a few rods on the deck, and then I would just go in search mode. That's the way I caught the big ones. Let's see, I caught a 7.5, I caught a 6, a 5.5, and on the last day, caught a 4, and then I had a chance at an 8. I just couldn't get her to go. So let's talk about rigging, the rods that I used up there, and a couple of the baits. Here we go. All right, let's talk rigging. I'm going to show you all the setups I used out at Clear Lake. I'm just going to show you the main ones that I used to catch all the big ones out there from this past weekend. So the staple out there, Clear Lake, you've got to have your Senko. This is just a 6-inch. It's a watermelon. Actually, it's a green pumpkin with black flake. I've got it on a Gamakatsu. It's their wacky round hook. It's got a weed guard. It has a closed loop on it, but I just clipped that loop, and I've got 2 little strands that are sticking off right here. That just kind of helped it get through the weeds a little easier when I'm throwing it up in the toolies. I got a P-line. This is a 15-pound fluorocarbon leader, about 2.5 to 3 feet. And I was using this setup here to skip it under docks and then kind of skip it into the toolies for a quieter presentation out there. So I'm throwing it on a Dobbins rod. This is the 704. And then I've got it on the Abu Garcia SX reel, and it's got 20-pound braid on there that I put for my leader. So that was basically the Senko setup. And then when I attacked the beds, I had 2 setups. If you saw my Folsom fishing report, you're going to know I caught a big one out there on this same setup. As I'm using the same thing for the beds. This is the Damiki. It's the 5.5 Stinger. Now my hook setup's a little bit different. I went with a Gamakatsu 1/0. This is the Wicked Wacky. So this here's got a weed guard on the front of it, and then the line goes through the back of it. They've got it all. It's got line that is twisted around a hollow tube, and that's where you put your line through for your weight. That's a 1/4 ounce teardrop, a drop shot weight. The reason I went with this one is a lot of those fish were in the toolies. So pitching this in there and then pulling it through the toolies, if you didn't have some sort of little bit of weed guard on there, it would just get hung up on the toolies, and then you try to just work it out. The tip would get in there, and then you end up having to pull it really hard, pull some toolies out with it, or you have to go back into the toolies if your rig got hung up in there. So this made it a little bit more weedless out there and a little bit more effective, so I wasn't getting hung up as much. So the 7.5 pounder came on this setup right here. This is also 15-pound leader, fluorocarbon P-line matched up on some 20-pound braid. I'm throwing it on a Dobbins rod. This is a 734, a little bit longer of a rod to help me pitch it a little further, and then the 4-power to be able to work the big ones out of the cover, or in case they dived under the boat, or just try to make some big runs on me, I could control them better. And then this is on a Revo. This is the STX. I think it's a 6.4-to-1. Yeah, the 6.4-to-1 is plenty fast enough out there. So that was one of the drop shot rigs, or the bed rigs that I used on a drop shot. And the other rig I used, if the clarity was a little off, or the bed was kind of deep and I couldn't see as well down there, I went to a Damiki Hydra. That's the 4-inch. And I'm throwing it on, this is a Blade Runner stand-up jig head. This is a 1/2 ounce. Really awesome on the beds, because when it gets onto the bed, it just sits flat, just like that on there. So the hook is pointing up, and so when that fish comes to grab it, they're getting nothing but the business end of this. And these little tentacles float, so they're kind of floating and keep that right in that fish's face. And I used all white, so it's easy to see when I got it on the bed, or when a fish grabbed it, I could set that hook. I could tell when it was gone, it's in its mouth. So, okay, car just went by. All right. So the setup I have it on here is a little bit more of a stout rod, because I was pitching it a little further, or pitching it into the bed. This is on the 804C Dobbins rod with straight braid on here, 20 pounds. And then the Abu, I've got another car. It's busy out here today. The Abu, this is the STX in 6.4-1. So it's a little bit longer rod, easy to pitch, and then it's a 4-power, so I could work those big ones off the beds, through the tulies, because a lot of them were positioned up in pockets in the tulie. So when they bit it, and then I could kind of work them up to the boat fast, or if they made the run out, I could control them easier on a 4-power. So those are the main setups out there at Clear Lake, and that's what I call all the big ones on. And I'm going back out there this weekend for the Future Pro Tour event, and I'll basically have these rods out there on the deck again this weekend.
Needs a shotgun.